G'day everyone, welcome back to another Dice Plays video. I'm Loaded Dice. It's good to be back. I just took a little bit of time off there during the end of the season for the TTS season there. I did make that top cut of top 16. I did lose my top 16 game, unfortunately. The guys from Simple Math Gaming, they streamed the game, so if you did want to go check it out, it is on there. So that's Simple Math Gaming. They've got a pretty decent YouTube channel and big fan of their work when they stream those top cut games. I do like to go back and watch them. I was pretty fortunate to be able to go back and watch mine, and it was very good to be able to watch the game and then retrospectively pick out the things that I thought I did wrong, the mistakes I made, things I could have done better. I was happy with the way I kind of recognized mid-game that I'd made some mistakes and put myself in a position that the dice could have bailed me out of the bad choices that I'd made. As it was, they rolled incredibly average and wasn't on the cards for that one. But with me bombing out of the league, I was able to focus a lot more on my in-real-life games, and I've actually been having a blast playing a lot of in-real-life games lately. For games night, you can rock up early. I've got an extra bit of time here and there now, so I'm able to play the extra 2 or 3 games a night. It's been great. I've been focusing a lot on Winterguard and also some post-nerf Malekith, and that's a combination list as well. So I've been playing a little bit of post-nerf Malekith as a splash into Winterguard, and I've also been playing a little bit of Crimson Dynamo as a splash into a Malekith Cabal list. So I've been enjoying both of them. They're both actually fantastic. The rest of the list needs to be a little bit fleshed out and practiced a little bit more, but for the most part, I've actually been really enjoying playing Cabal, which is a big change for me from playing a lot of Avengers, and also just trying to test out the much maligned Winterguard, who have definitely got a little bit overlooked on release. And that's what I'm looking to focus on for this series, is actually a bit of Winterguard. I do think they've been kind of left out in the cold, you could say. And if we just have a little bit of a talk about the Winterguard, I do think they're not a very flashy affiliation. They're not something that's going to draw you in because they have a great leadership or a great tactics card that it's kind of offhand. You can kind of go Avengers Assemble, or you've got some sort of great leadership. It's not that. That's not why you're playing Winterguard, unfortunately. They're more of a jack of all trades, do a lot of things, but nothing specifically well. They're not a flashy affiliation, but in practice, I've found that they're just a bit of this grindy affiliation that seems to get the job done all the times. And because of that, I kind of want to go through some of their tactics cards. So I will go through all the characters, I reckon, at a later date. I think that's kind of going to be the series I'm going to go for here, is Winterguard, go through the tactics cards, go through the characters. I'm actually pretty big on the characters. A little bit of a spoiler there. I think Crimson Dynamo is absolutely amazing. He's actually, I'm going to say Crimson Dynamo could be in the top 3 4-threat splashes in the game. That's behind Voodoo and behind probably Black Panther. I think he should be splashed a lot. He's probably the most tankiest 4 in the game. That is... yeah, I think that's kind of like a no challenge sort of thing as well. He is definitely right up there when it comes to the tankiest 4 in the game. So that kind of foreshadows how that episode will go. But for now, I think we'll go and focus on some of these tactics cards. And I did think that the start of this episode was going to be kind of fleshed out with a lot of padding. So that's why I picked Winter Rush to go with for the first card to look at. Now, I've been kind of playing my Winterguard, and I've been forcing this card all the time whenever I kind of play them as a proper Winterguard affiliation. I've been trying to force this card just so I've kind of got some evidence about what I'm trying to talk about here. So if we run through the terms and conditions of this one, what I do like about this one actually is it's paid during the power phase. So this card is not reliant on having priority or not, which is very relevant for Winterguard, I found, because they're a bit of a grindy attrition affiliation. And often I was finding that I don't have priority because I'm going 4 or 5 wide and I'm not really getting the killing kind of thing going off. I'm kind of usually getting beaten up. I don't want to worry about having priority or not, so this is very good that it's just paid during the power phase. So if we go through it, during the power phase, any number of Winterguard characters, that's very specific, so your splashes don't count. Any number of Winterguard characters can spend any number of power on this to play this card. If 6 or more power was spent to play this card, each time an allied character is damaged by an enemy effect this round, after the effect is resolved, another allied Winterguard character may advance short towards that enemy character. So the interesting kind of things here kind of take note. Again, it's paid the power phase, so you don't have to worry about having the active turn or not. You got to pay 6 power, and that 6 power can only be paid by your Winterguard characters, which is quite relevant, because what I was finding is I kind of like my splashes. If you're going to play full Winterguard, that's why you're playing this card, is to play full Winterguard. The thing is, it can be triggered by non-Winterguard characters. So if you've got, let's say you've got playing Malekith in your Winterguard list, if he gets damaged, another Winter Guard character can move. Now, if a Winter Guard character is damaged, you can't have your Malekith Splash move. Unfortunately, that's how that kind of works. So a couple of other things I just wanted to mention with this one, because it is actually kind of funny with the wording and that, and you can get some pretty cool stuff going on. It doesn't say it's limited to once per turn or once per round or even once per attack. It just says kind of like every time they're damaged by an enemy effect, any Winter Guard character can start to advance. So probably my favorite thing here is the way it interacts with explosive, because if you get tagged by explosive and then it starts doing some chip damage to some other characters, all of a sudden that's 2 or 3 triggers you're getting there, so that's multiple advances. And also the way it's worded, it doesn't say you can't trigger the same one more than once. So let's say Malekith, for example, gets tapped 4 times by a Bucky rapid firing, all of a sudden your bear can walk 4 times towards Bucky. The other part of it is also throws, because that'll be damaged twice by 2 different effects sort of thing. So if someone picks up one of your characters, throws it into another one, all of a sudden that's 2 triggers for Winter Rush as well. Now that is assuming they both get damaged, of course. But if we start talking about the actual effects of this and how it's going to really help your Winter Guard, and is it worth taking as well? That's another thing worth talking about. Is this card actually worth taking? Is the effect worth the 6 power you're going to pay for it, and the tactics card slot as well? And I think for the most part, the answer is dependent. It's actually dependent on the crisis and your and your list that you've made up, because if you want to play this card, you actually want to play 3 or 4 Winter Guard characters. You really want to play Dynamo, Guardian, Bear at probably a minimum as an 11. And then if you're really going to go for this card, I'd probably even think about chucking in Dark Star, just so she's got that movement stuff online. She doesn't really care about the movement as much, but it just helps if she has a couple of power to spare to fuel this card. But I do find the biggest use of this card is basically to start moving the bear around. That's probably the main benefit of this card that I've found, is to get that bear moving in unexpected directions that your opponent's not really thinking about. Crimson Dynamo is another one who really enjoys this card. He enjoys the movement to be able to set up some really cool beams. The other part of it is you can get some unexpected movement to get into positions so you're within range 3 to use Crimson Dynamo's Disruption Field. And if anyone who's actually played a bit of Dynamo, that's probably the best thing on his card, is actually being able to reroll your opponent's attack dice. The limitation is that you have to be within 3 of the enemy, and this card can definitely set it up so you are unexpectedly in range to start using your Disruption Field offensively. Now let's actually start talking about the practicality of this card, because what I have found is it is cool, and there is some pretty funky stuff you can do on Crisis. That's probably the other thing here, is it can be crisis dependent, and the way you want to move around, like a D or B shape or something, this card can enable you to walk 2 or 3 times unexpectedly on a B or D shape that you just gets you across the map. Because if you want to, I've been playing a lot of E shapes with Winter Guard and E shapes, and also the new meteors, the new sword. And what I found is a lot of times this card is absolutely rubbish and just irrelevant. I should say, not rubbish. It's just been irrelevant in the games that I've been playing with it. Practically, I do think the Bs and Ds, and you're going full 4 Winter Guard, you can see the Bear and Dynamo start to cross the map unexpectedly, but that's pretty much the most part when it comes to the practicality of this card. The issue I have with it is the fact that Dynamo already has a movement ability on his card. He has the 2 costs for a range 2 place, which I've found that the maps that I'm taking Winter Guard on, that's enough for me. And the other thing is the Bear has aggressive. That's been good enough for me. Like, he's getting stuck in. Like, he's usually double moving turn 1, and then he's in range to do stuff. So the practicalness of this card has been not as useful as you would think. That's if you think it's going to be useful at all. And a lot of the time it's just been cool, funky, not really relevant, unfortunately. So it does get a bit of a fail for me. I would still keep it in my list if I'm playing Winter Guard and I'm enjoying it, if I'm going to get pushed onto a wider map. I will like to play this if I'm determined to play Winter Guard, but I feel like if you're only bringing them out for those grindy games and you want to play that anti-attrition sort of game that I was playing with them, where you know the game's going to be a brawl, you're playing research, and you're playing demons, and you want to shake all those conditions, and you want to do an anti-attrition game, this card is not as good on those crises. So my final verdict on this one is it's very crisis dependent. It's fun. It's actually extremely fun card to play, because just because the way that kind of like the Jaws theme is going on, because the bear's getting closer and closer to your opponent unexpectedly. But for the most part, it is a bit of a miss, unfortunately. So I've started this Winter Guard series off with a bit of a light simmer, unfortunately. I will be back with I would think probably the best tactics card coming in next, which I'll let you guys sit on that and try and work out which one I believe is the best tactics card for Winter Guard. But with that, I will be back with the next one soon. I'll see you guys later. Cheers.